Good morning YouTube, my name's Sean Connors and welcome back to Outsiders. This is actually another DM's Tips program, but this particular DM's Tips program, it could potentially be more of a discussion thread. So let's get straight into it. Today I'm talking about house ruling. Now I'm going to give you some general advice about house ruling and some of the pitfalls that DMs can fall into. Now if you're like me and you've DM'd for a number of years, the reality is you probably are already making quite a few house rules. It's your game, obviously you can do whatever you like, but there are a lot of pitfalls that DMs can find themselves falling into. My personal and most simplest piece of advice is very simply this. Generally, I've always stuck pretty much in any role-playing system to the core books. I don't tend to deviate very much from those, and here's the reason why. Because those books, without a doubt, get the most amount of play testing. And so what that means really is that those books generally, any of the flaws, any of the problems, they're picked up during the play testing, commented on and normally dealt with. It's once you go beyond the core books and you look at the various what are termed as splat books, these are books that follow after really, or open up more options in the game, that the holes begin to find themselves. Now, in every game, even mine, you know, I've got house rules in my game, but I believe at this stage in my career as a DM that I do fully understand the repercussions of the house rules I put in. Most of the house rules I do generally, I try to have a positive impact on the players. There are some examples where that's not the case. If we take recent one where I've been building a particular D&D campaign, we've been talking about it fairly openly on here, on my DM's Builder program, we can see that I've put a house rule in regards to the magic users and their spellbooks, which clearly is going to make them more expensive. But I've already got a set of balancing rules in there with crafting rules that I've created specifically for that campaign. So you can see that I'm not saying I know best. I always say this as well. I don't know best than the designers, but I'm trying to achieve a little something within my games, and therefore I'm tinkering a little bit with it. But you have to be very mindful of what you do. But that doesn't really cover anywhere near house ruling, really, does it? Just talking about those sort of things. I mean, in most of my games, there's a couple of house rules that have stood the test of time. One of them I will quickly explain has always been that when it comes to rolling for hit points, I always allow the players to roll twice. They roll and I roll, and they take the best of the two rolls. And the reason I've put that in there, and it seems to work very well, is if it got to a stage where we just rolled once, the problem is that, particularly in the early levels, it's a nightmare. So, you know, you're playing a fighter type who's had a really good game, you get one roll of the die, you roll very poorly, has a huge impact on you in the next level and the level after. And that I try to avoid through that simple tip. So I would say this to any DM really, look guys, you know, when it comes to house ruling, it's your game, you do what you want to do, but please be very mindful that any changes you make have repercussions more likely later. And you have to think very carefully about the reasons why you're making the change. What is it that's prompting you to make that change? Is it something in the game that you feel is fundamentally broken, that doesn't work very well? Or is it something you're trying to achieve? Is there a certain type or style of game you're going for, and therefore the rules that currently exist do need to be tempered with, they do need to be changed? If that's the case, go ahead and, you know, make the appropriate changes, because it's your world, your focus. But generally, I would say try to leave games alone. Try to avoid the pitfalls. Play the game as written for quite a while, really, to be honest, and get the feedback not only of your thoughts but also your players. Explain what you're asking from them. So if there's a particular thing you want to explore after many sessions, ask them the question around it. You know, was it good that we stuck to the rules in regards to this? Did you feel that it was handicapping your character? What were your thoughts? And then when you get to your next campaign, you're able to make some appropriate changes based on your players' feedback, because that's your style of game. Your players and yourself are creating a style of game, and with their effort and your help, you can actually make a game that works best for you. Anyway, this has been DM's Tips. This has all been about house rules. My name's Sean Connors. Until the next time, take care. Happy gaming.